Hello and welcome to the final of 5 descriptive radio broadcast performances of Derelict in Uncharted Space. From all of us involved in the work, we'd like to thank you for your company wherever you are in the world. We're broadcasting to you from the unceded sovereign country of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Bunurong Bunurong people of the Eastern Kulin Nations. We begin as always by paying our respects to their elders past and present, and acknowledging their ongoing survival and resistance to colonisation. We would also like to acknowledge the First Peoples of Turtle Island in the so-called United States, where parts of this work were made and developed. We extend our warmth and solidarity to all First Nations people listening with us and the elders of all lands that this broadcast reaches. This show is a little different from the others. For our final live performance, we wanted to experiment a little further, so it followed that this radio performance should also be experimental. To that end, we're broadcasting several caption layers alongside the audio. Thanks for coming along for the ride. The performance will begin soon. It runs for just under 45 minutes, so please find a comfortable listening situation. This performance took place on the afternoon of Saturday the 14th of October 2023 at Chunky Move Studios in Naarm or Melbourne. From all of us involved in the work, we'd like to thank you for your company wherever you are. For this particular show, our audio describers were
Jon Tjhia,
Lorena Zapiain,
Madeleine Flynn,
Nilgün Güven,
Rachel Edward,
Rosemary Forde,
and
Zeno Davey.
Alright, we'll give you about 20 seconds to get comfortable and then we'll begin.
We're in a dark room as my eyes start to adjust and the light slightly brightens. I see we're surrounded by people. The audience sits on the floor, chairs and benches and stands. The floor is grey. The performers take their positions in the centre of the room. 1, 2, 3 figures, and a fourth, Rebecca, sits at the top of the performance space on a low platform surrounded by audio equipment. One figure is Fayan. She stands holding a cane, her eyes closed. Luke, in the centre of the room, sits on the floor, wearing a grey billowy jacket. Benjamin, an elegant dancer, stands in dress as the character Miranda. Sparkling dress, silver shoes,
but no, you're not really going to go because look at all these
and a glamorous hairdo.
Look at you and your body and your mind. And
we're surrounded also by screens.
Feel gaslighted because
one projection screen is suspended in the centre of the room from the ceiling. Shapes projected. Monitors on the floor,
for those who are
currently with red
details,
colour blocks, and screens above us also
we no longer have
dark with red captions in bold type.
Eye of the needle aperture to wiggle through to get to space. Disabled people are slipping into
The
space
performers are
unnoticed.
motionless.
Space is more accessible than space industry people think it is.
I notice there are shapes on the floor.
It's a designed environment. We are deliberately creating both the structures and the culture in which we choose to live.
Dark
when
and
we move into space.
Nondescript
I
splashes,
don't want to look too much like her. Anyone who thinks
Squiggles.
about that.
geometric shapes.
Systems now that are irritating and stupid. We don't have to
The stage
reproduce
itself, although it is on the same level as the audience,
those. We want
is
to build
marked out
something
subtly
better.
with grey line and taped lines. It's an unusual shape, angular, geometric. I happen to know that Fayan used to be a painter, and there's something in this composition that is resonant with the abstract geometric paintings that she made, etched in metallic and monochromatic colours. Rebecca sits motionless, watching. She picks up, adjusts the sound with her hands. A spotlight comes onto Fayen.
Fayen moves her stick across the floor like writing letters, carving words. Creating a world like a magician. Finding a space.
Her cane hits the ground with a kind of subtle bang.
Moving her stick in circles, she points it, drags it on the floor. She stands, her feet planted. There's an essence of strength. Luke, sitting on the floor, looks towards Fayen.
A new face is walking onto the stage. Who might it be?
Is it, I don't know, curiosity that draws him to her? Their hands touch softly. There's care, there's love. Reminds me of my son resting his head on my shoulder.
The screen lights up with captions describing the sound.
The light broadens to capture Miranda. A glittering cosmos over her body. A gown that captures the lights twinkling like stars.
Moving gracefully.
She curves her hands, writing letters. It's a typography. The letter H.
Like a bird doing his dance.
Her hands are direct and they fold into each other. She kicked her leg out. Carving air with her hands.
Tingling glides across the room.
Their makeup is reminiscent of 60s, 70s, heavy, colourful eyeshadow, heavy eyeliner, heavily mascaraed, engine red lipstick, cheekbones, gaunt looking. They're very slender and tall, their limbs seemingly extra elongated for their stature.
It looks like all the energy is being kind of compressed to one movement.
They're quite strict and precise in every single movement, even in their stare. Potentially somewhat suspicious. They have a different type of sensing in this space. Luke, Fayen are guiding and duet each other across the front part of the space towards the splattered star-shaped floor mat and bouncing the cane around together like a mini dance ruby, burgundy, red, midnight blue, and mossy green, like watercolors that have blended into each other. Luke seems to be a very caring, thoughtful person. And gracefully invites Van to sit down on a hexagonal box. And in this nook of the space, Miranda is the pointed triangle marked by Rebecca and Luke and Van along its base. All eyes on Miranda, who stares outwardly. Pointed elbows take her a step to the left, and with both hands they mark a big-bellied bee in front of them, and then dismiss it behind them. Stepping away and beyond the fire screen plastic sheet that hangs ceiling to floor.
Watching Miranda through the red drapery reminds me of those old sci-fi films and what Mars would look like through the windscreen of a spaceship.
Captions on screen in fluorescent orange capture the sound, burning, scorching.
Luke stands and moves away from his protected position of Fayan. Signs. I know the word beauty is there. His hands feeling, circling, stepping through a portal and closing the door.
Luke walks around the stage, looking as he goes, signing.
Miranda has removed the outer layer of her costume, a black, sparkling chiffon gown, and now reveals a jumpsuit, still very elegant. It elongates her body. She moves in slow but deliberate and precise gestures, circling and moving towards the floor, contorted now. We see the full extent of her high heels. She curls on the ground. Luke comes to join her and gently again removes the shoes.
There's a doctor-like, healer-like quality to Luke's care.
He raises a hand to the air while tending to Miranda, gently rolling her over, stretching out her arm, her hand.
I'm somewhat surprised that they are so malleable and passive at the moment.
Miranda's arm under her back and reaches out the other side, while Luke pulls almost cobwebs from her chest, raising her up, back arched.
A bell-shaped curve.
Luke's face is pained, as though he's taken on Miranda's torture.
Or stared at the sun for far too long.
Miranda's body is frozen until she begins to twitch.
Luke is now also on the floor, 2 bodies down, the red film between them. Miranda reaches up.
On the captioning screens there are floating, grayscale apparitions, bubbles, suggestive of something sinister. Vein is pulsing. Channeling. Rippling. In waves and currents within and around.
Looks like Fayan is a robot.
The screens glare with alarming reds and hazy horizons. Fayanism movements are accelerating, jerking, convulsing, never letting go of her gown. With its tip to the ground, it steadies
her dress like a tent in a thunderstorm.
These screens on the side are broken, fragmented, changed to stardust. All the while with sound captioning, describing distant violins of this noise you're hearing, created through a transmitting microphone.
The attack of the cane on the floor triggers a set of sounds. It's a visual and it's also an audio trigger. To Rebecca, Rebecca builds, Rebecca watches, Rebecca listens.
I think I saw Fayan trace STVA on the ground.
They're still conjuring. They're jamming. Meddling with different knobs. Now Fayan sits down. A bright light circle is lit in front of them with a blob-like pattern on its surface. All is still otherwise in the space, while Rebecca continues. Chirping and celloing and wafting over. Still space. Discarded bodies.
on the screens above the space. Rising dust like a barn door, slightly ajar. Next to Rebecca, turquoise. Kind of a visor across the silver body of a robot-like lamp. Miranda stirs. Her hand is held in a position kind of like a fish skeleton or a wolf's mouth. She crinkles and crumples like a broken satay stick in a chip packet. Drags her bum across the ground like an itchy dog. Crosses her legs, ankle over knee, ankle behind again. Pulls up with a disturbing ease. She's really tall, like a character in Mars Attacks. When she crosses her wrists, she reminds me of the pose that Manus detainees would pull during protests. One hand docks into the other, and then she follows it down.
I can't stop but look at her hair. It's just so perfect. It looks like a Barbie doll. I wonder if it's gonna stay as kind of perfect at the end of the show.
The size of Miranda's hair is almost exactly the size of her exposed skin on the back of her bodysuit. The bodysuit is the colour of the sea and the land, at least the land before it was dried out. A soft, iridescent green.
The way Miranda holds her body reminds me of trees in mythical stories. The curving, the fingers crunched, breathing, and her fingernails this beautiful green like the leaves.
You can almost feel the sharpness of her fingernails as you imagine them scraping across your cheek. She's completely fixated on the fingers she's brought together between both hands and extended up and then thrown down like a dropped egg on the ground.
One thing I like about this space is the mats. I think there are 5 of them, and they match the starry sky that they look in the TVs. They're white, kind of like foam, and they have speckles. It's like a fire camp.
Miranda looks like a muscle stretch. Her veil of stars crumpled on the wheel beside her as she steps awkwardly.
Reminds me of that cellophane Christmas paper that you just chuck on the floor after you're ripping open the presents.
A belt as the ribbon. Miranda's face is focused, mostly looking at her hands or just beyond them. As she moves, kind of writhing upright, she creates a negative force in the wake of her movements. She's still slow and haunted.
Are they deciphering or are they ciphering?
A tumble, throwing a beach ball, folding wrists, fingers and palms together, lifting the leg, too high.
As she stands beside the shoes that Luke so caringly removed from her feet earlier, and now watching her bare feet, I'm just imagining that feeling, being able to curve your feet after being in such high shoes.
Miranda's body is taut and lithe, turning and turning, pinched together at the bum.
All the while, Luke is like a dishcloth, soft but left at the side of the sink.
Head in a whirlpool. Miranda rides like a cable car, looking down at a star, letting go before she steps on it. But now her toes trace toward the edge of its spines. She arches back like a bell, turns on her shoulder, looks to the side, the lights shift.
Looks like cloud moving.
I believe she's riding with her body again.
Meanwhile, behind the red material, Luke slowly rises from what felt like a really deep sleep, feeling the air thick around him, groggy maybe, yet still gentle, hands curving, body waving, feeling, sensing, curved. Miranda's movements are sharp in contrast.
Suspended slow motion, parallel to each other, divided by who only knows, out of arm's reach, within arm's reach. Misdirected gazes missing each other.
The creases on Luke's baggy white cotton pants remind me of the poles of the radio telescope from earlier.
Moving like two galactical objects in space, spun out of orbit. Somehow they've landed in a wonky groove, as wonky as the edge of this stage. Their grooves are magnetically converging into collisions.
Vying for control. Miranda kicks Luke. He signs.
Miranda has a militant readiness for defense, with high kicks and attacks, making physical contact with Luke, who recoils, rebounds. Is obviously hurt.
Cliche, I know, but love and hate are not that far apart.
The lights go out.
Deliberately damaging a possible treasure. That was discovered and discarded at the same time.
Miranda taking on some anger that might have been left behind. There's a ferociousness to the way that she's moving and smashing into Luke, and her legs kick up in the air. She's feeling all the feelings. They come together as though they're going to dance and then expel against each other.
The captions on screen brighten, and they're bold, and they're glaring, and they're dancing as equally, or attacking as equally as the two on stage.
I like that they fall when it says the castles will fall.
Smashing together and coming apart like space debris.
It's like Miranda, you know those times when someone tickles you and you're just really not in the mood and they don't get it when you've had enough and you tell them to stop?
Luke jumps over Fayenne's cane.
Total catharsis.
Fayenne is woken from her position and standing, twirling her cane, taking in everything that is around her.
Miranda constantly celebrates all over the place, all edges, showing off basically.
And it looks like Luke is hiding behind Fayenne.
I want Fayenne to experience the same release as the others.
And yet, she is contained. Fayenne is left standing in a pool of light while Luke and Miranda have collapsed on the floor, their breath coming in heavy bands.
On the screen, oily, diluted figures, strongly resembling the characters on the stage, slip and dance one into the other, multiply, and then converge.
There's a gravity in Fayenne. Fayenne's connected somehow to the centre of the earth in this object that we're all within, this space that we're breathing together. They all sit. And vertically above them, colour comes to life.
On the screen is Georgina in an echo of the same outfit as Fayenne, and she moves her stick. Flowers, large, projected, open, in like a time-lapse feeling. Is that what beauty is?
The same colours of the blooms that wash Georgina are coiling out on the side screens like ink dumped into water.
I want to say that a moment ago was very dramatic, and now there's a feeling of peace.
It feels like everyone can breathe for a moment. Georgina turns towards her wall of flowers, and now it's fingers touching a cold, stark wall, pointing a bit sharper.
Now kaleidoscopic flower figures pins outward like a crab in defence.
Looks like sea creatures. Snapping, opening, closing. There's a rhythm like my heartbeat right now. And these stamens, they're fluttering like they've just had a compliment and they're blushed.
Luke, Miranda and Fayenne's arms gently unfurl into each other, bathed in green on the ground.
It's a collage, it's a montage, it's a macro, but so micro and detailed. Poppies, leaves.
Georgina has a white bob. She's an older person and she's got the white bob that I'm starting to think is the bob of power.
Look, Miranda and Fayenne, it's like they're defying gravity. They're floating through space.
Georgina's message is complete. Green.
cane handle held in right fist, I reach across my body before opening out again. The cane tip draws an arc overhead. Falling with momentum, the tip thuds against the ground. Arms outstretched from the body, I breathe in.
In bold,
pulling air
font,
in, expelling.
And brightly coloured screens overhead.
Notice the air that marks the space between
The
us.
pulsing circulates the body of the room.
I turn away.
Green,
The cane tip sweeps to the left,
gold and
then
yellow.
kicks up to rise and hover
Sets the
horizontally
glow of
as my
light
knees bend.
across the performance space and the
A
audience.
slight twist of the wrist moves the cane from right to left.
No one is moving.
Those in
The
front
body
of the smaller
softens,
screens
melting
on the floor.
downwards.
Seated in front.
I place the cane
They're
gently
glowing
on the
in the
ground.
sunlight of early morn.
Sensing a rumbling from beneath,
Now I can
a
see
cacophony
Fayan's
of
hand
incidental
is starting to
movements.
move.
My weight shifts reactively.
She's following the
Swiveling
text
on the
in a
balls of
way.
my feet, I turn to face the right. I pause, breathing.
Slower, but turning.
My torso
breathing.
pulses lightly.
Still seated in this trio.
I shift my weight, stepping backwards, turning to face
Pink
a new
and
direction.
orange.
Deliberate, assured steps bring me closer. I pause at the perimeter, keeping a measured distance between me and you.
Back to green and yellow.
My right hand sweeps forwards and around. My palm lands flat
Imperceptible
against the front
movement
of my left
starts to
shoulder.
become more visible.
It etches a line horizontally
Reaching
across my upper
further.
chest, then falls away. My left hand reaches towards my right shoulder, left palm flat with fingers splayed. I grasp invisible
Is she
threads and pull
stretching,
with force.
yawning, awakening?
My clenched fingers wrench away from my body.
Her cane lies
following a
discarded
diagonal
on the
path
floor at her feet.
leftwards. My torso bows forwards in reaction,
Fayan's
becoming
movements
concave.
are echoing the words that Alex is speaking.
My left arm reaches a point of full extension.
Purple, lilac, pink.
I circle my left wrist, letting my fingers untwist.
The energy is so relaxing.
I
could
allow
have
the
a little
held
siesta.
energy to release out into the air.
A
I offer
meditative
you my
moment.
upturned palm.
Fayan offers her upturned palms.
I can sense the rhythm of your beating heart. Its measured beat thrums in time with mine.
Now a blue screen. Fayan has stood and walks to the center of the space. She signs in language I cannot read. Miranda and Luke remain in their seats, watching her. Rebecca, for the first time, stands and moves away from her podium, facing Fayan. They touch and hold hands and walk together at one end of the space. Down here, Miranda is dancing.
Time could travel backwards. I think that's what Miranda just did, retracing a past.
Many circular movements. Fayan and Rebecca have paced around and now stand side by side, facing outward.
Behind them, the red visor-like sheet of gel, like a river of blood.
Luke has stood, and with Miranda, he is waiting to help her as she steps back into her black sparkling gown.
It's like Luke is giving Miranda back her protection.
Because Miranda has finally relinquished, allowed some exposure.
Faye and Rebecca walk hand in hand to the other corner of the space.
The alternate conjurer on screen, Georgina, is back again. Mystical wands in all corners of this upper screen, twirling and turning on a rotating disc quite joyfully. Spinning joy.
Miranda is now fully dressed.
And possesses Faye's cane.
Georgina's hair reminds me of He-Man. You never see superheroes get old.
Always becoming, always becoming. Luke in the upper circle under bright light is communicating to us all 360 rotations, connecting with each and every one of you, signing, seek cupped hands. Collecting Miranda's hand. All four come back to the original magical start, where Vayan had first appeared, and on the elders they stand, step in face to face. Back to back. Sign. Yes. Look up. Depart.
You've just been listening to Derelict in Uncharted Space. It was performed by Faye and Devi, Benjamin Hancock, Luke King and Rebecca Bracewell on Saturday the 14th of October 2023 and audio described by Jon Tjhia, Lorena Zapiain, Madeleine Flynn, Nilgün Güven, Rachel Edward, Rosemary Forde and Zeno Devi. This was the final of our radio performance series this week. You can find out more about the show and what we'll be up to next at our website, accesslab.world. And if you'd like to share your experience of the show, you can find us on Instagram at accesslab&library. Derelict in Uncharted Space was co-created by Faye and Devi, Benjamin Hancock, Rebecca Bracewell, Luke D. King, Georgina Cleage, Nellie Kate, Andy Slater, Lloyd MST, Jon Tjhia, Alex Craig, Anastasia LaFay, Aaron McPeak, Anna Seymour, Shireen Perrin, George Thomas, Lorena Zapiain, and Sherry Wells Jensen, in association with Anthony Hamilton, Vitae Veritas, Brian Phillips, Madeleine Flynn, and Charles Gushu. It was co-commissioned by Chunky Move and Melbourne Fringe, and supported by Arts Access Victoria as part of the Radical Access program. This project has been assisted by the Australian Government through Creative Australia, its arts funding and advisory body, and by the City of Melbourne through its Arts and Creative Investment Partnerships program. This project received cash to create through the Fringe Fund as part of Radical Access, and cash for equity as part of the Ralph McLean Microgrants program. It was adapted for radio by Jon Tjhia, with additional engineering by Marco cher-gibard. Caption design and live implementation for this show is by Lloyd MST, George Thomas and Jake Bonin. From everybody, thank you for joining us.